Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is JD, and today we're doing another easy Minecraft tutorial. This time it's going to be a little bit longer than usual, as we're going to go through all of the formulas, the crafting, the smelting that you have to do to get all 16 colors of dyes. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to craft and make dyes. So as you can see, there are 16 colors. We won't be doing it in this order, as some of these are a combination of two different dyes. But we're going to do the most basic ones first, and then some of the others which are combined. But not all of them can be crafted. Some of them you have to smelt. But first, we're going to look at white. This is a very simple one. You need the crafting table. You need bone meal. So let's just put the bone meal in, and you get white dye. You can also use a flower, Lily of the Valley, and that also gets you some white dye. Next up is black, which we can get from ink sacs, or we can get it from wither roses. So there is our black dye. Next up is brown. You'll need to go to the jungle to find this. You need cocoa beans, and that is the only thing that'll get you brown dye. Next up is red. Now this one you can get from multiple sources. First up we have the poppy, so you can get red from that. You can get it from the red tulip. Also rosebush. Now this gives you double the amount because rosebush is a 2-high block, or a 2-high flower. You can also get it from beetroot. So we got 5 stacks. We're going to skip over orange for now, go straight to yellow. Now this one comes from 2 different flowers. We have the dandelion and the sunflower. Now the sunflower will give you 2 full stacks, or 2 dye for 1 sunflower, as it is another tall flower. Next up is green. This one's different. We can't get it through crafting, so we need to smelt cactus. So let's just take 1, and you can see this will come out as our green dye. Now this is the first of 3 that can be obtained by smelting. There we go, our green dye. You can also get some XP from it. Next up is blue dye. This you can get from cornflowers or lapis lazuli. Of course, lapis is used for enchanting, so it's up to you if you want to use some of the limited supplies you get from mining. Cornflower, of course, is renewable. Alright, now we're going to be doing some of the combinations. First up, we're going to look at gray dye. This one you can obtain by using, let's say, some white dye and some black dye. There we go, we got our gray dye. You can also combine ink sac and bone meal to get gray dye. But can we combine white dye with ink sac? Yes, we can. We can also combine black dye with bone meal to get light gray dye. So there are 4 combinations. Light gray dye is a lot more complicated. There are many different combinations here. So first of all, we can use 2 white dye plus a black dye to get 3 light gray dye. You can also use 2 bone meals and an ink sac to get the same thing. You can also make like a combination of the 2 like this, or with black dye and bone meal. That works as well. You can also use gray dye in this, so you have white dye right here, and a gray dye. That gets you light gray. Or you can use gray dye and bone meal, and you can get 2 light gray dye. You can also get it from nature. So we have azure bluets, which give you a light gray dye, white tulip, and oxeye daisy. So there are many different ways of getting light gray dye. Next is orange dye, which you can get in 2 different ways. Of course, you can use orange tulips, or you can combine red dye and yellow dye. And there we go. We've got 2 stacks of orange dye. Next is lime dye, right over here. Now this one is, well, we don't have any lime, so we can't use that, but we can use substitutes. So let's take a look. We can use green dye and white dye. There we go. We can also use green dye and bone meal to get lime dye. But there's another way. This one involves smelting. All you do is smelt sea pickles. And of course you get sea pickles usually in coral reefs, and they can be used to make dye. Cyan dye is only obtained by combining 2 different colors. You can use blue dye and green dye, or you can use green dye and lapis lazuli. And that's it. Light blue dye has several different methods. The easiest one is to find blue orchids, and there you go, your light blue dye. You can also combine lapis lazuli with bone meal. You combine white dye with blue dye, or you can just do lapis lazuli and white dye, or bone meal and blue dye, and you've got your light blue dye. Purple dye is pretty straightforward. You can combine blue dye with red dye and you get purple, or you can combine red dye with lapis lazuli, and there you go, purple. Next up is pink. We're skipping over magenta. This one you can use pink tulips or peonies. And peonies are double tall flowers, so you can get 2 for each. You can also use red dye combined with white dye, or red dye combined with bone meal. And there is pink. Now, magenta is probably the most complicated one here. First of all, you can use purple and pink to make magenta. You can also use blue, white, and you need 2 red. You can also combine pink, red, blue, and red to make magenta. You can also substitute lapis for blue and bone meal for white dye. That's fine. But you also have flowers. Allium is magenta, and lilac is magenta. Now, what can you do with dye? Well, there are a lot of things you can dye, so let's take a look. First of all, we're going to look at white wool, and I think we're going to use orange dye mainly. So all you need is 1 white wool and the dye, and there we go, we've got orange wool. As for leather tunic, now this one's a little different. Depends on if you're playing in Java or Bedrock. In Java, you just simply use this. It doesn't work in Bedrock, which is what I'm in right now. But if you want to dye your leather tunic, you need to, first of all, dye the water. All you do for that is right click the water with the dye, and then you can use the leather tunic and just dip it in there. Now it's orange. As for terracotta, you need to use 8 terracotta blocks and 1 dye to get 8 orange terracotta. For shulker box, just 1 shulker box and an orange dye, you get your orange shulker box. For glass, you need to surround it with 8 glass and 1 orange dye. You get 8 orange stained glass. For concrete powder, you'll have to craft this from the beginning. So you'll need 1 dye, 4 sand, and 4 gravel. And you'll get 8 orange concrete powder. Now the other ones, now this one, white bed to orange bed, this is easy. Just do that. But there's one other thing. You can actually dye sheep. So there's a sheep. Here's your orange dye, orange sheep. And you can now shear this sheep and you get orange wool. This is an unlimited supply of orange wool. You can dye the sheep any color. Now I've got a llama wandering around somewhere over there. I'd just like to show you one more thing. With the orange wool, you can make orange carpet. And let me find this llama. There you are. He's tamed, so he's fine. Just put that on top, and you have to be on him. So there we go. Orange carpet. And you can see it's got a pattern. So it's pretty interesting. Now if you can just come this way, there we go. Of course, there are other things you can make with these materials. Like wool will make banners as well. I do have a video about the loom, which shows you how to use dyes with banners. You can see that in the cards in the top right-hand corner. And of course, there are other things. You can make concrete with concrete powder and so on. So, what do you like to use dyes with? What do you like to dye? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the video, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in seeing some more easy Minecraft tutorials, then please consider subscribing. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.